I'm Fox 26 meteorologist Ramisha Shade. It's that time again, time for your daily tropical update, and it has just been really active over the last several days tracking Hurricane Ian. Of course, it did officially make landfall yesterday in the early afternoon as a very high-end Category 4 hurricane with 150-mile-per-hour winds. Now we're really beginning to see that devastation, damage, and destruction from pictures and videos coming in. In fact, we're talking about widespread flooding, a lot of damage from storm surge, and also very high wind gusts that were reported across portions of Florida. So let's check out some of the highest reports from Ian so far. In fact, close to 30 inches of rain. Can you believe that? That is horrible. Close to 30 inches of rain reported near New Smyrna Beach. Just tremendous amounts of flooding there. About 7 feet of storm surge reported in Fort Myers. I believe that's a new record for them. And over 6 feet of storm surge was reported in the Naples area in Florida. As far as wind gusts, we had a 140-mile-per-hour wind gust reported at Cape Coral. And of course, yesterday, if you were watching Fox 26 News in the evening, I was showing this 124-mile-per-hour wind gust in Punta Gorda in Florida. So this has just been a horrific storm. The good news, though, for folks in Florida is the fact that it is finally pulling away, but it's back over water, over the open Atlantic at this point, and it is already strengthening. So the breaking news for this tropical update is the fact that Ian, once a tropical storm, is now back up to hurricane status. It has re-strengthened to a minimal Category 1 hurricane, but it is really grown in size. We're talking about tropical storm force winds expanding out over 400 miles, believe it or not. And now it's going to take aim at the South Carolina area. In fact, eventually North Carolina will get in on some of this as well. So let me tell you about the current position, and then we're going to track it for you. Hurricane Ian, now with maximum sustained winds around 75 miles per hour. It has pushed off of the Florida coast. It's now in the open Atlantic, and it is moving to the north-northeast around 10 miles per hour. Pressure currently at 986 millibars, and that pressure could drop just a little bit and allow it to strengthen even more before it makes another landfall, likely by tomorrow afternoon and evening. At this point, I think by 1 a.m. Friday, it should be up to around 80 miles per hour. So the National Hurricane Center forecasting Ian to get even stronger before this next landfall. This will likely be, unfortunately, right around another fairly highly populated area. This landfall for Friday afternoon will likely be right around Charleston, South Carolina. It looks like that will happen around 1 p.m. with Ian still having those sustained winds around 80 miles per hour, and of course wind gusts would be even higher than that. So this is still a dangerous situation with the potential for major wind damage for the Carolina coast and also the big potential for flooding. After Ian reaches land on Friday afternoon, it will weaken to a tropical depression most likely, and then just back to an area of low pressure, and then it finally fizzles out and fades away. Good riddance. We need to get rid of this. We have been dealing with so much from this tropical cyclone, so it's good to see that after Saturday afternoon, it should be gone for good, but it's still going to dump a lot of rain and produce a lot of strong wind as well. Speaking of wind, these are the current wind gusts showing up on the northeast Florida coast. Still picking up at times some tropical storm force winds up around Jacksonville and the First Coast area, Daytona Beach. Notice over the last hour or so, wind gusts over 50 miles per hour showing up there, and down around Cocoa Beach, still dealing with some stronger wind gusts there as well. But you'll see those outer rain bands from Ian starting to push away. So hopefully things will start to calm down for the northeast Florida coast shortly, but then the attention will turn to the Carolinas, unfortunately. Before we start talking about what's going to happen in the Carolinas, I do want to show you this graphic. Look at this swath of extremely heavy rain. This is radar estimated rainfall just over the past 48 hours. And we're talking about a total between 20 to 25 inches. This is just south of Daytona Beach. So when you get that much rain in a short period of time, of course, you know there's going to be tremendous amounts of flooding. And that's exactly what we've been experiencing for much of Florida with Hurricane Ian rolling over the area. All right, speaking of that wind field, I told you earlier that we had tropical storm force winds that extended out over 400 miles. Well, this graphic kind of tells that story and shows you that this is the projected wind field for Ian, and the yellow and orange areas indicating those tropical storm force winds. And just look how wide that is. It extends from Daytona Beach through Jacksonville, Charleston, and even farther north and east of Charleston. Of course, you have the hurricane force winds in that red area right in the middle. So the hurricane force winds only extend out about 45 miles, but overall this is a huge system, and it's going to have widespread impacts even as it pulls away from the state of Florida. So as we go through time, notice that by tomorrow morning, right around 10:30, I'm going to stop the clock there, we're starting to get those hurricane force winds. That's the area in the middle in red, pushing into Charleston, South Carolina. So of course, if you have friends there, family there, if you had a trip planned there, definitely anticipate some possible issues. But if you have friends, family there, give them a call, make sure that they are preparing for this. Don't take this lightly. Just because it's no longer a Category 4 does not mean that there won't be issues. We're still talking about a lot of wind, damaging wind potentially, and also very heavy rain with this. And there's still going to be some storm surge issues. Of course, that's when you get that big rush of water coming in when the hurricane is making landfall, and you could get storm surge several feet high above the regular tide level. So that is what we're talking about here, and it looks like the Carolinas will have major impacts from what is left of Ian. And there's a lot left of it because, as I mentioned, it is once again hurricane status, a Category 1 hurricane. All right, let's talk about the rainfall. This is what we call the excessive rainfall outlook. It shows the chance of flooding within 25 miles of any location. And fortunately for the rest of today, it looks like that major flood threat, or the threat for any additional heavy rain, really starting to decrease for Northeast Florida. But our attention will turn to tomorrow, because look at this big red area here. That means we're expecting numerous flooding threats for Charlotte, Columbia, Charleston, Raleigh. It looks like that excessive rain threat will be on the high side because Ian will be making landfall by tomorrow late in the morning into the afternoon, and it's going to bring a lot of moisture with it. That counterclockwise flow will bring in that moisture off of the Atlantic, and it's just going to produce tremendous amounts of rain once again, several inches likely. As we go into Saturday, of course, Ian will be weakening, likely back into a tropical depression and then dissipating. But before that happens, it's still going to spread that chance for some heavy rain that could lead to some flooding over towards Charleston, Roanoke, and even into the DC area. So this will have widespread impacts, like I mentioned. So it's something we continue to watch closely, but at least by the second half of the weekend, I think we will get rid of Ian completely. And hopefully that will be it this season for major hurricanes. Hurricane season, of course, still goes through November 30th, so we're not out of the woods yet, but hopefully we won't have one that bad. Hopefully we won't have any more. So far this season, we've had 9 named storms, 4 hurricanes, 2 major hurricanes. That's still below the norm, but you know, it only takes one really bad storm. You don't have to have several, and that's exactly what we've had with Ian. And we also had Fiona, which was a major hurricane. So we've had 2 pretty devastating storms, but at least we are still below the norm as far as our average hurricane season. That's usually 14 named storms, 7 hurricanes, and 3 major hurricanes. So overall, we are below the norm, but like I said, this storm was historic. Ian was historic. It's devastating. Florida's still cleaning up, dealing with the aftermath, and now it's set its sights on the Carolinas. So hopefully we won't have another one like that. We are past the peak of hurricane season, which is around September 10th. We're a couple days away from October, so we can still get tropical depressions, tropical storms, and hurricanes. But notice, after the middle of October, the chance for tropical systems really starts to go down. So let's just try to get through the middle of October, and then I think our chances will be pretty low that we'll have any additional development. But of course, we have to wait all the way until the end of November before we could say the chances are over completely, at least until the next hurricane season. So that is a summary of what's going on. We are still closely tracking Hurricane Ian. Like I said, it's back up to a Category 1 hurricane with 75-mile-per-hour winds. Expect it to strengthen Tonight and tomorrow, back to an 80-mile-per-hour hurricane. Of course, if you would like to know more on what's happening in the tropics or get your local forecast, make sure you have the Fox 26 weather app downloaded. A very cool thing to have on your phone or your tablet. And also, don't forget, check me out. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Ramisha Shade TV, Ramisha Shade Weather, and at Ramisha Shade on Instagram. Have a great day.